could actually spend an entire day talking about the nuances of each tribe and why we had to have a complete understanding, as much as an outsider can, on what made things work or not work in the province. The importance of this slide is not only knowing the province and the tribal relationships. It was critical to understand what the threats were to our support of the government and the people besides the Taliban and al-Qaeda. The red represents the areas that remain tense due to a variety of reasons. And as you can see, two important factors weren't the enemy, al-Qaeda and the Taliban, but the lack of rule of law and poor or no governance. It is hard to build a society if the people don't recognize the legitimate government from the central, provincial, or district levels. There we go. This slide builds on the last two. Who were the power brokers? What were their relationships with others? And how did they manage and influence the different tribes and elders? Over time, we came to have a very thorough understanding of those, and those highlighted in blue were the ones that we spent a great deal of time with, mentoring them in effective government and influencing them if we thought that the different groups were feeling disenfranchised. As you can see from this 2003 organizational chart, not much consideration was given to the interagency in creating synergy of the expertise that they brought to the table. In the early days, Department of State and USAID were merely living on the forward operating base, and their stated purpose was outside the PRT mission. As you can see there on the outside, that's blue is the military, and the orange and yellow are the civilians. The base of the relationship was information sharing only, and that was normally accomplished through the Civil Military Operations Center, and not with the PRT commander. The relationships was dysfunctional, as a team normally worked at cross purposes, and the military dealt with issues with the provincial government back through the military chain of command, and Department of State and USAID back to Kabul for guidance and program strategies with the embassy. We sought to change this. As you can see from this slide, the purpose didn't change of the PRTs over time, but the efforts and strategy evolved to capture synergy. In the yellow box, you can see Department of State, USAID, and Department of Agriculture are no longer outside the PRT construct, but an integral partner with an equal voice. This was in part due to the recognition of General Kamia in mid-2004, prior to deployment to Afghanistan, that more benefits and emphasis needed to be applied to the interagency coordination and the application of the 3 Ds, diplomacy, development, and defense at the field level, and should follow the earlier lessons from civilian operations and revolutionary development support program accords of the late 1960s. Having the interagency team as part of the decision cycle at each level allowed for unity of effort and created a command group, or as we called in Jalalabad, the interagency executive team. That is the reason why the Jalalabad PRT was so successful, is that this executive team created short, medium, and long-term objectives, bringing together the experience and higher education of the Department of State and USAID personnel that typically attend Ivy League schools. I'm not going to go into all of these because of time, but creating the optimal conditions requires all entities to come together to maximize resources and capitalize on available assets without compromising the different agencies' missions and goals. After all, at the end of the day, team members to the PRT or stakeholders in the provinces were there to create the conditions for the central and provincial government to be responsive to the people and to create a self-sufficient Afghan government. The final bullet is probably the most important on this slide, understanding the human terrain, as I believe this is a more complete picture of the environment in Afghanistan. Culture is part, but it's much more than just culture. It is a bottom-to-top look at why society behaves as it does, what makes them tick, why it is a critical part of truly understanding the environment in which you are trying to influence and help become self-sufficient. Finally, I want to highlight some of the things that we got right, and that was largely in part because of the understanding of the people. What were their needs, the provincial leadership's strengths and weaknesses, and our understanding of the Pashtun Code of Conduct, or Pashtunwali, as it is known to the people. That was, in my mind, the most critical piece to our survival. It is not just understanding Pashtunwali, but how to work in the context of the code in our daily actions. This paid huge dividends as the people truly saw us as guests and as someone that was there to really help them have a better life. But what did we miss and why? We lacked the civilian expertise with higher level education to bridge the gap of our expertise with what we all know is found in graduates of Ivy League institutions. So I'm not sure how I'm doing on time, but thank you very much.